DEA says this is the largest single seizure of fentanyl in state history.
This seizure represents thousands of lives saved. It is also indicative that the Mexican cartels continue to traffic significant quantities of fentanyl.
6:12 a.m. California. Fentanyl sealed for mass death. Military rifles in transit. Refrigerated containers for human organs. Cartels inside California's rail system. America's infrastructure breached from within. Watch carefully.
To not just focus on a low-level dealer in a community, but how do we look at the enterprise? What is behind that for the distribution network and the supply network? And our goal is to trace it all the way back to the cartels and hold them accountable and bring them to justice.
127 arrests, 43 rail cars seized, fentanyl, meth, and weapons moving through America's rail lines. The largest internal transportation security breach ever uncovered in the United States. But the real shock wasn't the drugs. It was who was moving them. People with full access. People trusted to protect the system. They didn't defend America's rails. They handed them to the cartels. Hit like and stay with me. What comes next affects every American. The FBI confirmed the discovery of a major drug and weapons trafficking network inside the nation's second-largest railroad company. It was just after 11 p.m. when a freight train on the Central Line slowed and came to an unexpected stop. A routine weight sensor beneath the tracks had quietly sent an alert. Rail inspectors arrived with flashlights, expecting a simple equipment issue. What they found stopped them cold. One cargo car was nearly 900 pounds heavier than its shipping papers claimed. That kind of discrepancy didn't happen by accident. Agents opened a service panel along the car's side. Behind it, they found a second steel wall, freshly welded and still cold. When the hidden compartment was opened, the truth was impossible to ignore. Inside were industrial bags of fentanyl powder, enough to poison entire cities. Beside them were military-grade rifles, sealed in grease to avoid rust. And stacked along the back were refrigerated containers, the kind used to transport human organs. This was not a smuggling trick by a single criminal. It was a moving crime scene hidden inside a commercial train that millions of Americans trusted every day. If a railroad moving 1/3 of U.S. freight can be captured from within, then no system is truly safe. Comment, protect America. If you believe critical infrastructure must never belong to criminals. What federal agents uncovered on the midnight train forced an immediate shift in thinking. This was not an isolated smuggling attempt. It was not a rogue crew or corrupt worker. It was a warning sign, evidence of something much larger hiding in plain sight. As investigators traced the paperwork, the tracks, and the ownership records, a disturbing picture began to form. 2 years earlier, America's second-largest rail company had quietly changed hands. The company controlled 31,000 miles of track and moved nearly 1/3 of all freight in the United States. The sale appeared clean and successful. A $4.60 $6 billion acquisition by an investment group calling itself Pacific Rail Holdings. Financial media praised the deal. Investors applauded. Daily operations never skipped a beat. Trains ran on time. No alarms were raised. But behind the polished press releases was a different reality. Federal financial analysts discovered that Pacific Rail Holdings did not truly exist. It was a shell built on top of shells. Companies registered in Panama, Belize, Hong Kong, and Dubai designed to hide ownership. When investigators followed the money far enough, every path led to the same place. The Sinaloa cartel and CJNG cooperating inside the United States for the first time on this scale. Within months of the takeover, the rail company began to change from the inside. Cartel operatives were quietly placed into key positions. Maintenance supervisors controlled repair yards. Logistics managers decided which rail cars went where. Night shift foremen approved loads that never appeared on official manifests. Engineers redesigned refrigerated cars with hidden steel compartments invisible to routine inspections. What had once been a trusted American rail system became a moving criminal corridor. Drugs flowed west to east. Weapons moved north to south. And the most horrifying cargo of all, refrigerated boxes carrying harvested human organs, traveled under the label of medical equipment. For nearly 2 years, this poison crossed the country silently, riding America's rails. And until that single train stopped just after 11 p.m., no one realized the nation's railroads had already been captured from within. Stay with this story. Share it. Because what happened next decided whether America's railways would be taken back or lost forever. By early dawn, federal agencies had seen enough. The undercover reports, the altered rail maps, the midnight cargo, everything pointed to a system that had become too dangerous to ignore. At 4:18 a.m., the quiet hour when most freight trains move without witnesses, the United States launched the most coordinated transportation raid in modern history. The operation had a simple name, Black Storm. Across 12 states, teams from the FBI, DEA, DHS, and state police were already in position at rail yards, switching stations, and maintenance depots. Surveillance drones hovered just above the fog. Armored vehicles rolled into empty lots beside long rows of silent trains. Agents wore night vision goggles, radios pinned tight to their vests, waiting for one synchronized command. It came at 4:18 and 30 seconds a.m. The stillness of the Rylard shattered instantly. In Missouri, agents stormed a major switching hub where 3 cartel supervisors worked the night shift. The supervisors tried to lock down the control tower, but SWAT teams breached the steel door with hydraulic cutters. Inside, cartel members opened fire. A short but violent gunfight lasted less than 60 seconds. When it ended, agents secured the tower and recovered route plans detailing the movement of 2 tons of fentanyl scheduled to depart within hours. In Arizona, federal officers surrounded a repair shed used to modify refrigerated cars. As agents closed in, a group of cartel mechanics attempted to escape using a service locomotive. Tactical units blocked the tracks, forcing a surrender. Inside the shed, agents found 27 refrigerated containers, each with hidden compartments large enough to store drugs, weapons, or human organs. In Illinois, the battle was louder. A cartel-controlled warehouse beside a rail line refused to comply with commands. Flashbang grenades lit the early morning darkness as agents breached the loading doors. Inside, they found 12 workers sealing crates of methamphetamine disguised as food shipments. Several suspects attempted to flee through a back stairwell, but were caught by DEA teams positioned outside. Meanwhile, in Texas, the biggest objective of all, a 2-mile-long freight train waiting for clearance, was seized without a shot fired. GPS trackers had confirmed it was carrying one of the largest mixed contraband shipments in the operation. Agents boarded car by car, uncovering rifles wrapped in plastic, sacks of narcotics, and cold storage units mislabeled as agricultural equipment. By 5:57 a.m., the operation was complete. 127 suspects were in custody. 43 rail cars were seized. 7 rail facilities were under federal control. And for the first time in 2 years, the nation's rail network was no longer moving drugs, weapons, or human remains through the heart of American communities. The battle was over, but the investigation was only beginning. If you stand with the men and women who stopped this threat before it reached more cities, hit like and comment Black Storm so others know this story matters. As dawn settled after Operation Black Storm, federal agents finally had the chance to examine what they had seized, and what they uncovered inside the rail cars, repair sheds, and switching stations revealed a criminal operation far more advanced, more disturbing, and more deeply embedded than anyone had imagined. The company wasn't simply transporting contraband. It had been engineered to do so. The rail cars themselves were the first shock. In the Arizona repair facility, engineers from the Department of Transportation studied the refrigerated cars that had been captured hours earlier. On the surface, they looked like standard cold storage units used for milk, produce, and meat. But beneath the flooring was a second system, a hidden coolant loop fed by an independent compressor disguised as emergency lighting equipment. This allowed the cars to carry cargo that normal freight couldn't, including human organs packed in sterile bags. Tools found in the workshop showed the precision of the modifications. Laser cutters, industrial welders, specialized clamps custom-made to rip open the walls of a rail car without leaving exterior marks. Every detail had been designed to fool federal inspectors. While investigators documented the designs, tactical teams were still clearing out the facility. In one corner stood a fortified room with reinforced plates welded inside. Agents breached it with a small explosive charge. The echo rolled across the depot like thunder. Inside were 50 black crates the size of suitcases, each containing fentanyl powders sealed in medical-grade plastic. The room had a trapdoor that led to a service tunnel, proof that the cartel had prepared escape routes even on federal property. Across the country in Missouri, a similar scene played out in the switching hub recovered during the raid. Here, investigators found the brains of the entire network, a specialized routing software installed on computers disguised as maintenance terminals. It controlled which trains would be diverted to secret sightings and which would bypass federal way stations. The system automatically triggered mechanical delay alerts to mask unusual stops. Every manipulation was logged under fake employee IDs. The night's gunfight had taken place directly above this control center. Bullet holes still pocked the metal walls where cartel supervisors had attempted to hold their ground. The shootout lasted only moments, but its intensity showed how desperately the cartel wanted to protect this hub. Agents recovered rifles, encrypted radios, and burner phones filled with transit maps that did not appear in any official database. In Illinois, the story was no different. The warehouse raid that shattered the pre-dawn silence revealed a production line, an assembly station where workers packed methamphetamine into crates labeled as food supplies. Testing later confirmed that some boxes were bound for school cafeterias and retirement homes, blending the cartel's poison directly into the nation's most trusted supply chains. Federal officers also discovered something even darker: a set of empty cold boxes labeled with QR codes tied to non-existent medical centers. These were meant for human organs. Organs that would never be traced, never reported, never questioned. The cartel had built a supply chain that moved like a living organism. Fast, silent, adaptable. From the hidden compartments in the rail cars to the corrupted supervisors controlling the tracks, every piece of the network had been assembled with purpose. Operation Black Storm had broken its spine. But the investigators now realized the truth. This railway empire wasn't just moving drugs and weapons. It had become the beating heart of a criminal system that treated America's railroads as its own private highway. And dismantling the outer shell was only the start. The real danger was what remained hidden beneath years of corruption. Records, money trails, and insiders who had not yet been exposed. The hours after Operation Black Storm were supposed to bring clarity. Instead, they opened a door into a labyrinth. The seized rail cars, computers, and cold boxes were only the visible surface of a criminal structure that had grown roots deep beneath America's transportation system. If the raid had been the battle, the investigation that followed became a war of patience, precision, and constant danger. Federal analysts began by digging into 3 years of shipping records, millions of data points, train logs, and way station reports. Patterns emerged quickly. Certain trains always traveled in the darkest hours. Certain foremen routinely approved unscheduled stops, and certain routes showed weight discrepancies week after week, always in the same 600 to 900 pound range. These were the cartel's ghost shipments designed to blend into legitimate commerce. Yet paperwork alone couldn't expose everything. The FBI needed insiders. That is when 2 undercover operatives posing as seasonal rail technicians were quietly placed inside different repair yards. For months, they worked double shifts, cleaning brake assemblies, fixing couplers, and learning the rhythms of the night crews. Eventually, a supervisor approached one of them with a quiet offer. There's extra work, high pay, no questions. And just like that, the undercover agent stepped deeper into the darkness. The task? Help install a new secret compartment inside a refrigerated car. The supervisor showed him the plans. Thin steel walls, a hidden access hatch, and a coolant line rerouted to keep the compartment chilled. It was designed to hold either drugs or human organs, depending on the week's order. The agent documented each step while pretending not to notice the armed guard watching from the shadows. In another state, the second undercover operative followed a corrupted logistics manager to a remote sighting. There, under dim floodlights, the manager unlocked a rail car and revealed crates of military rifles and methamphetamine. He explained how the system worked. Every car looks normal from the outside. Every route looks ordinary on the log. But the real cargo, no one sees that unless they are paid to see it. Risk hung thick in the air. At one point, cartel enforcers arrived unexpectedly, demanding to know why the sighting had been accessed early. The undercover agent remained silent as agents positioned miles away prepared for a rescue that fortunately was never needed. It was a reminder that even after the big raid, cartel muscle still lingered across the network. Wiretaps added yet another layer. FBI intercepts captured conversations using railway slang as coded messages. Send the cold steel north meant fentanyl. Clear track 9 meant a human organ run. The night cargo is heavy, signaled weapons. Every phrase decoded brought agents closer to mapping the entire chain of command. Financial investigators followed the money. They discovered hundreds of shell companies moving funds between accounts in Mexico, Central America, and East Asia. Others fled their posts, abandoning entire yards in the middle of the night. In one tense confrontation at a Colorado rail hub, federal officers exchanged fire with 2 armed guards who were trying to torch a server room. The flames were contained, but the message was clear. The cartel knew the walls were closing in. By the end of the investigation, the FBI had mapped every corrupted node, every supervisor, every modified rail car, every dollar laundered. When Operation Blackstorm had cracked open, this long, methodical investigation finally laid bare. It proved beyond doubt that the nation's second largest rail company hadn't been infiltrated. It had been captured, engineered, and weaponized from within. When the full findings of the investigation reached Washington, the response was immediate and unprecedented. The Department of Justice, the Department of Transportation, and the Department of Homeland Security convened an emergency meeting that same night. What Operation Blackstorm revealed was not a simple case of smuggling. It was a direct assault on America's critical infrastructure. For the first time in modern history, a foreign criminal organization had taken operational control of a national rail carrier. By dawn, the Attorney General stood before the cameras and delivered a message the nation was not prepared to hear. The United States' second-largest rail company was purchased, manipulated, and weaponized by cartel forces. What traveled on those tracks was not commerce. It was poison, violence, and human suffering. Federal seizures began instantly. Every railroad involved in the cartel's operation received a federal security perimeter. Armed guards from DHS patrolled the entrances. Trains were immobilized until cleared. Thousands of innocent workers reported for shifts only to find FBI agents interviewing supervisors, inspecting lockers, sealing off control towers. Some employees wept as they watched the company they trusted collapse before their eyes. But not everyone surrendered peacefully. In New Mexico, a group of cartel-linked yard enforcers barricaded themselves inside a dispatch building when federal agents arrived to confiscate routing servers. The standoff lasted 13 minutes. Flashbang grenades shattered the windows. Tactical officers surged inside and the men were subdued before they could destroy the hard drives that held months of incriminating data. In Georgia, 2 corrupted engineers attempted to flee with a locomotive, trying to push it onto an unmonitored spur where an escape vehicle waited. FBI vehicles blocked the tracks. Sparks flew as the train braked violently, and agents pulled both men from a cab. Still, the larger crisis was not the gunfights. It was the nationwide disruption. For 48 hours, 1/3 of America's freight network was frozen. Grocery chains warned of delayed food deliveries. Hospitals worried about medical supplies. Millions of seniors watching the news felt a rising sense of unease. If a cartel could take over the railroads, what else could they infiltrate? Congress moved quickly. Emergency hearings began within a week, bringing in transportation experts, security analysts, and the battered executives who had run the company without realizing they were puppets of organized crime. New legislation passed with rare bipartisan speed. Mandatory deep scan inspections for refrigerated cars. Ownership transparency laws requiring disclosure of foreign-linked investors. Random federal audits for all major transportation carriers. A new corporate infiltration task force within the FBI. Yet, the human toll was unavoidable. Over 60,000 employees faced uncertainty as the company entered federal receivership. Some feared retirement benefits would evaporate. Others feared being mistakenly tied to the criminal network. Towns built around rail yards braced for economic shock. But even amid the fear, there was one message federal leaders repeated. These tracks belong to the American people, not to cartels. To restore trust, the government launched Safe Rails, a program that deployed rapid response security teams to high-risk rail hubs. Seniors living near train corridors were given public briefings on new safety protocols. Local sheriffs partnered with FBI advisors to monitor remote spares where cartel activity had once flourished. Slowly, the network came back to life, train by train, mile by mile. But it did so under a new reality. Americans now understood how fragile their infrastructure could be and how far criminal organizations were willing to go. Operation Black Storm had ended the cartel's control, but the lesson it exposed would echo far longer. If America lowers its guard, even the steel rails that built the nation can be turned into highways of crime. What this investigation revealed goes far beyond drugs, weapons, or a single company. It exposed a hard truth about modern America. Our greatest strengths can become our greatest vulnerabilities when oversight fails and greed is allowed to hide behind paperwork. For years, politicians spoke about border security, street crime, and local dealers. But this case proved something far more dangerous. The threat did not come from the shadows of alleyways. It came from boardrooms, logistics offices, and systems trusted to keep the nation moving. A cartel did not sneak across the rails. It bought its way inside. The political consequences were immediate. Congress was forced to admit that national infrastructure had been treated as an economic asset, not a security asset. Regulations built for profit efficiency failed to detect criminal ownership. Oversight mechanisms trusted balance sheets more than human intelligence. And for nearly 2 years, that blindness allowed poison to travel freely through American communities. Strategically, this case changed how the United States views internal security. Railroads, ports, hospitals, trucking firms, and supply chains are no longer just businesses. They are front lines. If criminals can control movement, they can control harm quietly, efficiently, and at scale. But there is also a lesson of strength. When the threat became clear, federal agencies acted with speed and unity. FBI agents, DEA teams, DHS officers, and local law enforcement stood together and reclaimed a system that had been stolen from within. Operation Black Storm proved that when America recognizes the danger, it can still respond with force, discipline, and resolve. The question now is not whether this network was stopped. The question is whether the country will remember what it learned. Because the next threat may not arrive with violence. It may arrive with contracts, investors, and perfectly legal documents. If you believe America's infrastructure must serve the people, not criminals, hit like so this story reaches more citizens. If you believe accountability must go all the way to the top, comment Protect America. And if you want to stay informed as this investigation continues, subscribe and stay with this channel. The rails are moving again, but vigilance must move with them.